Hello again, I'm Dave Apsley. I'm a forester and a natural resources specialist with Ohio State University Extension. Today is July 5th and I'm in Jackson County, Ohio, and I'd like to introduce you to blackberry. That is, if this weather's going to cooperate and allow me to do so. Blackberry is a close relative of black raspberry, which we introduced last week. In fact, they're both in the same genus, Rubus, which includes the blackberries, the raspberries, and the dewberries. There's lots of species of blackberry. This one is probably Allegheny blackberry, which is the most common in Ohio and definitely the most common here in the southeastern part of the state. So how do we identify blackberry? Blackberry is a cane or a bramble. It's very similar to black raspberry, except this one tends to be a little more erect. These can get 6 or more feet in height. They tend to not droop over and they will not reroot back into the ground like the black raspberries. Blackberry's canes are a bit different as well. These canes are typically purplish or greenish in color. They're more angled in cross section. Remember, the black raspberry was round in cross section. These are angled. And in fact, if we cut the end off and look at the end, you're going to see the pith of it is somewhat star-shaped. So it's somewhat angled. It feels very ridged, unlike the black raspberry, which is very round in cross section. This cane, again, as I mentioned, is either greenish or purplish in color. It's going to be somewhat dull, and it won't have that glaucous or whitish bloom on the surface. Like the black raspberry, it does have thorns. These thorns aren't real long. They tend to be about 1/4 inch or so in length, kind of broad at the base. These are pretty straight, but they can have a little bit of a curve to them as well. And then on the cane, you're going to have these compound leaves. The compound leaves typically have 5s, although the keys say they can have up to 7. Leaflets, they're going to have teeth around the edges. Palmately compound, similar to a buckeye. They are alternate, so they do alternate sides of the twig. They're not going to be paired like the buckeye. And if you'll notice, actually on this rachis, you'll actually have some thorns on the rachis as well. So in the spring or late spring, you're going to have flowers. They're 5-petaled, they're white. They're actually very showy, and much more so than that of the black raspberry. They'll have long petals and they'll last for a good while. And then once those petals fall off, these fruits start to form. And you'll notice this thing is loaded with berries. These berries are technically not berries. They're actually an aggregate of drupes. A drupe is a single-seeded fruit. These are a bunch of those single-seeded fruits all aggregated together in a cluster. And you'll see this on the blackberries and the raspberries and even the mulberries. So these fruits are different from the black raspberry in that they can be quite a bit larger. These can be 1 inch or so in length. And when we pick them, you're not going to have that hollow center. The rasp actually stays in here and the stem breaks off. So when you look at it, it's not going to be hollow like the black raspberry. They tend to not be quite as tart as the black raspberries, but they can be very juicy. And in some years, they can actually be pretty sweet and really good for cobblers or pies. So if you'd like to manage for blackberries or even black raspberries, I highly recommend thinking about your edges, because that's where they typically are going to occur. And if you disturb those edges by mowing, or we call it bush hogging or brush hogging, maybe about 1/4 of those per year, and you rotate around the edge. So you have some 1-year, some 2-year, some 3-year, and some 4-year-old habitat. That will regenerate these canes and give them time to mature and produce fruit. The blackberries tend to be along the sunny edges. The black raspberries tend to be tucked in a little bit more, maybe in a little bit of shade. So again, thank you so much for your time, and please take at least part of your day to enjoy it in the woods.